everyone. I have an important message for all you lower deckers out there.
Hello, dear listener. A bit of housekeeping before the episode this week. Mike and I wanted to thank each of you for listening, and especially those who have stuck with us each week as the show has evolved and hopefully improved since its inception. This week has a bit of holiday craziness. This episode is a bonus, as alluded to in last week's very special message. I do want to apologize in advance and warn everyone that the sound in this episode is not great. I recorded in my closet studio with our special guest, and we were sharing a microphone. So at times it's very quiet, at times it was very loud. I did my best to edit the sound up and down as it needed to be. And even though it took me a stupid amount of time, I did the best I could. So hopefully it sounds good to everybody else. And I really do appreciate your patience. Also, just a heads up, we do get a bit off topic. I know at the beginning we'll say that we're here to talk about Star Wars, but we end up going all over the place. But the conversation was good, so I didn't want to cut it or anything like that. So just take it as this is a general conversation about books, TVs, movies, and pretty much everything else we could think of. So once again, thanks for being loyal viewers of the show, and we hope you enjoy this bonus Star Wars Warcraft TV talk episode. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, happy whatever you celebrate, and we'll see you in 2024. And now, on with the show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds, a weekly rewatch podcast for TV shows, movies, and this week, an explanation as to why it sounds like Nick hates Star Wars so much. My name's Nick Ferro, and joining me today is not Mike Hilty, unfortunately. This is a special bonus episode because we are taking time off for the holidays, but we needed to get one more episode in between Christmas and New Year's. But I would not leave you without a second person, and I scoured the internets and the world for another Mike. So introducing to the show for the first time, my brother, Mike Ferro. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing good, thank you.
I'm glad that you could come in for the holidays. Michael is in for the holidays all the way out from Alaska, where you do Army stuff, yes?
That's correct, Army.
What are you? I don't actually know, because we're terrible siblings. We don't talk ever. So what's your Army status? Like, you have a rank?
I'm a specialist. Which doesn't really mean a whole lot.
All right, cool.
The gopher.
I tell people you drive the big trucks.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I drive the big trucks.
When people ask, they go, what does he do in the Army? I don't know. He drives big trucks. So.
That's exactly what I do. I drive big trucks.
All right.
I catch up on a lot of podcasts while I drive.
Do you listen to this podcast?
Should I lie to you?
Yes.
All the time. Every single day.
That's so sweet of you.
I've listened to some episodes twice.
Ah, you're the best. I just knew we would be reaching an audience of more than 11 people, so...
Well, make it 12.
Well, today we're going to talk Star Wars because we're in the middle of our Ahsoka run, and it has been interesting so far. Not a show that I'm a big fan of. It has stuff that I like. I know you haven't watched it yet. Do you have any intention of watching it?
Like, I'm going to have to be real bored.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I mean, I know you and I know me, and we are not exactly big Disney Star Wars fans at all. And that's why I wanted to have you here to talk, because we want to talk about the things that we do love about Star Wars, and namely, that is the expanded universe. We both got into it very young, and that is pretty much where our Star Wars fandom comes from. So let's just kick it off. I've talked a lot on this show so far. Everybody kind of has an idea of how much of a nerd I am with Star Wars. So when did you start reading the books, and what really kept you reading them?
The first book was Shadows of the Empire. It was the first one I ever started reading. We were in Japan. I don't even know whose book it was. It was yours or Dad's or...
don't even, honestly, with that one,
I just
don't
remember picking it up. It was in the house. I remember picking it up. I remember reading it. I remember having a very low reading comprehension because we moved there when I was 5 years old.
Yeah,
so I probably wasn't reading it till 6 or 7, but it probably took me like, I don't know, months to read the whole book.
Shadows of the Empire book came out in 96, so we had been in Tokyo for about 3 years at that point. And
that would have put me at 8 years old.
Yeah, so
it's kind of a higher reading.
That's younger than Lily at this point.
Yeah, so that was a higher reading comprehension. But it took me a while to read.
I was 11.
Was that the one where you said Rendezvous?
No, that was the Tales from the Bounty Hunter, the Zuckuss and Forlom tale. They were obsessed with getting to the rendezvous point.
I believe it's
I
Rendezvous.
had never read that word out loud before, so I didn't know that that's how that word was read. So I was calling it the Rendezvous point. Yes. Ha ha.
Ha ha ha.
Ha ha ha. Kids can't read.
I've always pronounced that word Rendezvous from now on.
Well, that's fair. That's. I mean, realistically, that is how it should be pronounced. That's how it's spelled. Stupid French.
Stupid whores devour.
You know, honestly, I don't remember the first book I read, but Shadows of the Empire was one of the first. I remember reading it when we were at the Chapel Center. Like, Mom and Dad had us there one day, and
I don't even know where we got it. I don't even think it was Dad's.
I think it was Dad's.
Maybe.
From what I could piece together, in 96, they did the whole Shadows of the Empire line where they had the special toys, the game, the book. Like, they did a whole multimedia project with it. And I'm almost positive I was too young to have been getting the books on my own just yet, because it was shortly after we moved to Tokyo that I started even trying to read them. I was still reading the young reader novels. Like, they got us those
the Young Jedi Order?
No, not even those. Remember the thin books with like Tricolus, the Emperor's son or something? I don't even remember. He had he had like third eye in his forehead, and there was Zorba the Hutt was a bad guy. And
I thought that was the Young Jedi had Zorba the Hutt.
No, that one. I mean, well, he actually might have showed up in that one, in those two, but I can't remember. It was the Hand of Darth Vader or something, or the Glove of Darth Vader was the first book. I don't remember.
Vaguely sounds familiar.
I don't remember a ton from those books, but they were aimed at younger kids who were not ready for regular novels yet. They were only maybe about 120 pages long, and like they even had like pictures in them, and they were, I guess, like, these books counted as canon, but only if they didn't contradict the main novel line. Back when canon actually mattered. Certainly was something they threw out the window.
Why did you say that word?
I know, right?
Why did you say that word?
I know. I remember, I don't even think we had all of them. I think we only had like maybe like 5 or 6, and there was like a 12-book series. And the next thing I got was the Young Jedi Order.
It had to have been, because Dad had already owned the...
Yeah,
he
had Thrawn
Dad
trilogy.
had the Thrawn trilogy. Dad had the Jedi Academy trilogy. He had the Corellian trilogy. Dad had all those. I think the first books I remember purchasing, like where I'm like, Mom, Dad, I want Star Wars books, was probably, if it wasn't like the single story books, it was probably the Rogue trilogy, the Rogue series, the 9,
yes, that's
the 8,
it.
I feel like those. I know I bought Corrin's book, I Jedi.
Dad had the first X-Wing book, and then I think you were the reason that we got the rest of them.
Yeah, I read one of those.
Because the first one we had was Beat to Hell. Yeah, but then the rest of them are all in much better condition. So I've got Crucible here, and this is the very last Expanded Universe book. So Crucible takes place 45 years after A New Hope. I was convinced when they announced the new... They were going to pick up right after it.
It's free.
Like...
Because I didn't read Crucible, but it's just free writing. Like, you can create whatever you want. You just have very loose characters to work with.
Without giving away how Crucible ends, it is very much a passing of the torch. Like, they deal with the idea of what happens when Luke dies or retires. What happens when our most senior do their swan song and peace out? Who's going to lead the Jedi Order?
You read the end of What's the one before that?
Crucible?
This is the final
Legacy
book.
Apocalypse?
Yeah.
The last Legacy book?
So if you read the end
Or,
of that...
I'm sorry, no, that was the Fate of the Jedi.
Like, the Fate of the Jedi is literally... It's literally the scene in episode 2 where they're in the stadium and they're just lighting up lightsabers. And you're like, oh, by the way, there's a billion Jedi present. And then all the infiltrators are just taken out. Like, they had no idea it was coming. It seemed anticlimactic at the time and maybe a little disappointing. You're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. But it's like, the Jedi are not some punks like the freaking Old Republic.
Yeah.
These guys have been training their whole lives to not be fooled by basically politics.
Yeah.
Just like Yoda and Mace Windu, as smart as they were, that's what got them. They weren't smart enough to see.
It wasn't even a matter of them being smart enough. I just think that they were complacent.
Yeah, complacent.
They were comfortable with where they were, and that's what I loved about.
They
that
were
series.
overconfident too.
Yeah, I really loved that.
Honestly,
series.
I hadn't even made that connection until just this moment.
I really love that series because it did that. It said, like, we're not making the mistakes of the old Jedi Order.
Yeah, and so, like, you just said, they're kind of like, what happens when Luke dies? I just thought they'd be fine. They don't need Luke. They have Jaina, who's their sword.
The sword of the Jedi.
Basically their gun that they can point at whoever they want. It's like, if shit needs to get destroyed, Jaina's going to do it, but she's going to do it how Luke did it, because she has a level head, and she's probably a better swordsmith than Luke probably was.
She was. And let's take a moment now to pour one out for our lost trilogy, the Sword of the Jedi trilogy that I was so ready for.
I just needed her to be the Luke Skywalker of the series, because she was always my favorite character.
She was my favorite as well.
And the mouse wanted a strong female character, and they had one on a silver platter.
Primed. Early on, I got really obsessive about how it was so stupid that they were eliminating the expanding universe. And the big thing was everyone said, oh, well, what can they even do? There are too many books. You can't expect people to read all these books just to understand the new movies. And I was like, you don't need to, because they have the perfect main character. Because at this point, even Jaina's too old to be the main character of a movie series. But Alana Solo, Jason's daughter, is not. Yeah, in fact, Crucible ends 45 years after A New Hope. I believe she was 12 in this book. So you set the movie 6 years later. She's 18 years old. She's our main character. Ben Skywalker is her master. And that's your main characters. Ben and Alana.
It's basically Obi-Wan and Anakin.
It's essentially that. And then
you can do whatever you want.
Jaina Solo and Jagged Fell are in their because did you read the Legacy comics that take place in the future?
Cade
Skywalker, yeah.
I read the first
They were writing them kind of concurrently with Fate and the Legacy book series, and they essentially set up the fact that at a certain point, Jaina and Jagged started a new Imperial Jedi Order.
I'm gonna go build my own theme park with blackjack and hookers.
So the Imperial remnant was also welcoming of Jedi, because the Imperials weren't really bad guys anymore now that the Emperor was dead and all the really gross moths were kind of taken out, because Dalit took care of that like a boss. But for the most part, the Empire was just like another government, the Hapes Consortium.
It was just a faction.
Yeah, exactly. And I think created their own Jedi.
It just had a bad name. They honestly should have rebranded.
They should have rebranded. I really think that they had something there that they could have showed how the universe has evolved without really going into too much detail. And then what they could have done was the story could have been essentially what they did. Alana is, unsure of her past because she doesn't know much about her father, who died because he went to the dark side. Her aunt killed her father.
It's almost too on the nose.
I know with what they actually did.
Which I mean, like, that's why I hate The Force Awakens, because it's literally just a copy paste of the trilogy almost.
It is.
It's really bad. It's just really poor and lazy. It's an entire 2.5 hours of member berries.
It's a cash grab.
And it's the worst kind of movie you could have made.
I'm laughing because that's literally how I described it last week when I did my ranking of all because you listen,
Oh yeah, of course. So you said last week. I was actually on the road last week for Army.
That's right.
Army hadn't given me the day off yet.
But last week, for the podcast viewer, we do a ranking where we put all the Star Wars movies and shows in order. And naturally low on my list is The Force Awakens, and I tore it to shreds. But I said it was just a cash grab of member berries. That's all it was.
Did you say that The Last Jedi was speed in space?
If
If this Star Destroyer goes under 45 miles an hour, it's gonna explode. I was like, hey, send just 4 TIE fighters. Just the 4? We got like 200 of them in here. Just the 4.
That's all they need.
It was like, and make Kylo in one of them, but then he's gonna get real scared and we're not gonna send the other 194. It doesn't matter because we're not using them.
I mean, yeah, now that you mention it, if that bus did go under 55 miles an hour, it would have exploded. I don't think we got to The Last Jedi yet. I haven't...
And at sublight speeds, they're like, I think there's a planet in the distance. At sublight speeds, you'd see the planet in the distance. Just FYI.
If it's so small you can't see it, it's too far away to read.
You're never gonna get there. / it didn't exist.
Hey, space travel, how does it work? All right, well, I don't want to spend here talking about the crappy Star Wars. I want to talk about the good Star Wars. So you started out with Shadows of the Empire. Where did you go from there? When did you tackle the Thrawn trilogy? Like, did you wait until you were a little older, or did you try that soon after?
We were back in Pennsylvania.
Oh, really? I didn't even realize it was that late. We moved back in
like
98.
I feel like I didn't read that much. Because that got me into reading, but then I think I started reading like Goosebumps and stuff like that.
I guess you were young.
So I think we got more into my age range, even though I remember there was like this book reading contest at school for whatever. It was like, how many books can you read? And my brain wasn't thinking tactically like, oh, rewards. I'm going to read my favorite book and it's got so many pages, but it was quantity, not quality. So everyone's got all these numbers and I'm like sitting here with my 300 pages and everyone else is, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should read books that are more appropriate.
That's so
for my
funny
age.
that you say that, because that's literally what Mia and Lily are doing.
I didn't
right now.
min-max properly at a young age, and I learned they got to, okay, this was the age we had to grow up in. They got to like have a fun day and watch movies. I feel like I had to sit in a separate room and not do that.
So you're talking to the kids about all the crap that they got to do this week?
I'm like, what? I might be misremembering that. I feel like half the class had fun and the other class was like, you didn't read enough.
You know what? Now that you're saying
Japanese learning.
I do remember the whole, if you read a certain amount, like
you
you got rewarded.
Yeah, like a cool fun day.
Yeah.
I was still present. They were on the other side of the wall having a blast. They watched like Stuart Little or something.
Mia did what you did. She's been reading long books. So like there's a kid in her class who's read like 40 books and Mia's at like 25. And we're like, how come? And she's like, I picked long books. And Lily, she's like reading the same book 40 times and she's like, I've got 40 books. Well, all right, kid. Good for you. I have a different experience growing up because I guess I was much more into it in Tokyo because I was older, but I honestly think that by the time we moved back, I was pretty much done with Star Wars books.
Well,
so we moved back in
'98.
98. I was done with the ones we had. Because at that point, Bantam had switched over to, had sold the rights to Del Rey, and they started the New Jedi Order series. And we did not get into the New Jedi Order series right away. We actually didn't buy them at all. So the Bantam series, which takes you pretty much from Return of the Jedi all the way to like 30 years out, and they cap it off with the Hand of Thrawn duology. And then that was pretty much it for those. And then like a year later, The Phantom Menace comes out, and they started with the prequel books. And I remember getting a bunch of those.
You bought a lot of the prequel books.
Yeah.
Because I actually took a while to even start reading the prequel books.
The prequel,
They didn't interest me.
They were scattershot. The problem with the prequel books is that they were mostly one-offs. They didn't really, it was very similar to when Bantam was doing Crystal Star or Children of the Jedi. Like,
Right.
they were single
Those,
books that don't
and we
really
all
work
know
great.
those are the bangers.
I know, right? They were not exactly the best books. They didn't quite know what they were doing, but they had the foreknowledge of what had come before it, so that like they weren't as bad as Crystal Star or Children of the Jedi. They were
Honestly,
fine.
the ones that I was least excited to read, so like the Mace Windu one, I was like, okay, this is cool, Mace Windu. Meh.
Really?
It was a good book. It was an okay book. The medic series, surprisingly very good.
I agree.
Like, what universe was the one about the medics in the Clone Wars gonna be the good? Like, it's MASH in Star Wars, and somehow it was the best one I had read up to that point.
Yeah.
And then I hadn't touched the Republic Commando series, and that one is, you wouldn't expect it to be great. That was probably the standout of that.
The Republic
era.
Commando series took me a while to get into because I did not like that first book.
Yeah, the
The
first one was
second
slow.
book picked up, but like by the halfway through the second book, I was hooked.
What are there, like 5 of them?
There are
Order 66 is the 5th or the 6th one.
I have it right here. Hold on, I'm gonna look. I want to say there were 5. It was Hard Contact, 000, True Colors, and Order 66. So it was 4, and then they had Imperial Commando was the 5th. That took place after Order 66, and then there was
That one took place on Mandalore.
there was a
Is that the one on Mandalore?
That one is mostly set on Mandalore. There was a 6th book planned, but it got canceled thanks to our good buddy Dave Filoni, who decided to
God, he should have just
completely-
adapted that family into our Mandalorian series.
Don't even get me started.
Yeah, I
on
did.
that.
Yeah, we don't. You know,
I know. I
Like
know.
they even like moved up. Like I remember that last. I think it was Order 66.
They could have been in the Clone Wars.
Where the Order 66, I want to say, is the one where they're trying to figure out a way to escape all of them, and then they escape to Mandalore.
They escaped to Mandalore. The ARC troopers, the ARC squad, Delta and Omega. For those of you listening who played the old Republic Commando video game, Delta Squad from that is not the main characters of these books. They actually do play a bigger role at one point, but they are like if Omega Squad is the Ninja Turtles, the Delta Squad in the books are the Ninja Frogs. Like that's what Delta was. So they were the main characters of the video game, but they took a back seat in the books. That's what Bad Batch is. Have you seen Bad Batch at all?
No.
It's not a bad show. If it's essentially Ninja Turtles in Star Wars. They were like, well, how do we make Ninja Turtles for Star Wars? We make 4 clone troopers who all have specific abilities, and like there's literally a Donatello one. Like, he wears glasses, he does machines. There's one that's cool and rude. There's another one, he's just a big goofball. And then the leader, he's like John Rambo. It's not a bad show. It definitely is. It only suffers from the whole it's Disney canon, and so the people behind it are a little iffy, but they've been doing a lot of good things in it. It very much is reminiscent of what the Republic Commando book were. The only thing that sucks is that they caused really bad blood with Karen Travis, the author.
I'd imagine just in general.
Oh,
I'm surprised Timothy Zahn was so forgiving.
I like money. They backed the Brinks truck up.
That guy received a big old fat truck of money, and they brought it first. They didn't offer the contract first. It was the money first. They were like, "This is how much," and he says, "I will do it."
Timothy Zahn's wife goes, "What's that beeping in the front yard?" And you just see 4 giant trucks dump truck
that's
money all in their
had
lawn.
to have been. I'm like, and I guess I can't blame the guy. Like, what are you gonna do? He lost his income. He lost his income. Karen Travis lost his income.
Jade Lucena.
Yeah, he friggin' the Bane guy.
The Bane guy.
Drew Karpyshyn.
Karpyshyn, yeah. The newer ones.
It was the 3 authors.
Troy Denning.
Troy Denning. Like, all those guys.
Alan Alston passed, unfortunately.
Christy Golden, she kind of had
Golden
she's a bit of a Blizzard cash cow still, so she's fine. But I mean,
she kind of got pushed out of Blizzard too.
A little bit, yeah.
She hasn't written a new book for them in a while.
Yeah, they've been going a different route with some questionable authors. I'm hoping Metzen saves them.
Did you read the Vol'jin book?
Wasn't that Christy though?
No, I don't know who did that one. It was not a name I recognized, or not the Vol'jin book. The more recent troll one, the one that focused on the trolls.
No, I didn't read
with
it.
Zappy Boy.
I do like Zappy Boy. Oh, Zappy Boy?
Zappy Boy is like the main character. At least I think it's Zappy Boy.
Zakan.
Yeah.
That's Zappy Boy.
Yeah. So
He's in all the cinematics.
he's not. That book was not good. I actually gave up on it pretty quick.
I haven't been reading the Warcraft books because the story's been mad to begin with.
They seem to be
the one with Callie Amenethil was actually pretty decent. I think Christie wrote that one though, and that's why I liked it.
Yeah, she did.
I think Christie Golden wrote that book.
I
just like her style of writing. It's very young adult, but it's easy reads and it's not overly complicated and it gets her point across.
Yeah, she's
not hard to read.
She has a style that you can pick up on really easy, and once you find that groove, it's really easy to fly through her books. Yeah. I have the Sylvanas book upstairs. I haven't started that one yet.
It's tough. You didn't play the games.
No,
I lived through Shadowlands. Unfortunately, you think COVID was bad? Shadowlands happened during COVID.
That's fair.
I was in my own maw.
I've been so out of the loop with the games. One of the things I liked about the Warcraft books is that they really did a good job of working in tandem with the games, whereas I feel like these last couple that I've read did not. They did not really jive with the games at all, and it just felt like there was a huge gap between books that even like rewatching the game cinematics and reading up on the lore and like what happened in the game, because I haven't been playing in years, didn't do enough to make the next book make sense enough.
It felt like the books were reactionary to people not liking their in-game story.
That's a good way of
like
putting
the
it,
Emerald Dream book. Malfurion is my favorite character.
Yeah,
I've been Druid since day one. That book was awful.
Yeah, it was.
Although was that the one with Anduin and Velen?
But
which was the best part of the book?
That was not their fault, though. I actually know the backstory to that book because that book was scheduled, written, and ready to release, and they then changed. They were supposed to release the Emerald Dream stuff years ago, like before Pandaria. Well, yeah, but they kept pushing it, and that the book got written with the because that one's not technically canon now because they contradicted a whole bunch of stuff with the dude, the bad guy in it.
Emerald Dream's good.
No. The book isn't technically canon. Because what they did...
Everything happened in the book still happened in the game.
But it happened at a different time. Because it happened at the same time when the Worgen joined the Alliance.
Yeah, and then that was the one with Anduin and Velen, right? Where Anduin went off and learned how to be a priest?
No, that was the next one.
Okay.
That was the one where Varian and Greymane had their part. And it kind of explained why the Worgen and the Night Elves had a close relationship after... So it tied in with that game, but then the Emerald Dream stuff got pushed game-wise to, what did they do it in the Shadowlands?
No, I'm literally in the Emerald Dream right now.
Oh, okay, that's the new one now?
Active patch. No, so the books there were always tied to major lore characters. As much as the book didn't have to be great, but it had a major lore character. And you were like, whoa, they just released Sylvanas. That is such a reactionary book to everyone. They're like,
hating it.
We can't lose Sylvanas. We literally just genocided a tree with night elves in it. And they're like, oh, shoot. Sylvanas is like top 5 on 90% of WoW players' favorite characters of all time, dating back to Warcraft 3. And they're like, we just made her do a bad thing. And then we made her side with the bad guy of the Shadowlands. And now we're trying to redeem her. So we're like, if we write a book... There's a good chance that they'll maybe sympathize with.
Wait. They're trying to redeem her?
Oh, she's already in the Maw, saving all the souls she killed.
Really?
She's coming. Valyria in the
new.
No, so we're within Valyria. Well, she's been back.
Oh no, the other one. The other one.
Illyria. She's been back with Turellian.
Yeah.
So she's going to be a major part of the War Within. Okay. She was very heavily featured in the trailer. So. In the next 2 expansions, Sylvanas will make her return. And 100% you're going to have to pretend like she didn't burn the tree down. Because they can't get rid of her.
So they're Fast and Furiousing it now? She's Jason Statham.
I guarantee you, like, there's gonna be like a very brief, because they already had kind of like Taronda didn't forgive her, but she's like, I'm not gonna kill you.
I've been saying this for like 3 expansions ever since they got rid of Hellscream. Grom.
Yeah.
Gromish was
No, Gromash was the one in Warcraft.
He's that. Who's the kid? The one that everyone hates.
Garrosh.
Garrosh. Yeah. Garrosh. So ever since Garrosh was taken care of, I was like, Sylvanas is next. Sylvanas is the only one still around from the original. She's gonna, and they already, for like 3 expansions, she was just getting more and more evil.
Well,
she bombed her own Undercity.
No, that was all BFA.
Yeah, I know, but she did it all the way back then. Like, I couldn't believe
that was when she burned the tree.
I couldn't believe that they've now managed to go 3 expansions and Sylvanas is still in this game. They haven't made her a final boss to kill yet.
No, she was. So that's you fought her in Shadowlands finally.
But
and
you didn't kill her.
No. Okay, so at the end of that fight, the jailer gives her soul back, which Arthas stole from the Frostmourne. So all of a sudden now, her soul's back. She didn't kill all those people. Oh no, she still did, but she's got her soul back.
It wasn't.
Now she can think about it a little bit.
It wasn't Sylvanas the Soulless the Souled who killed her. All those people. Yeah. It was the Soulless version. Everybody knows.
Yeah, it was basically the Banshee Queen, but now she has her soul back. So now they're mark my words. In the last Titan, if it's not in Midnight, in the last Titan, Sylvanas Windrunner will have a reunion with Valyria and Illyria, and they will discuss, sisters are going to do something cool. If she doesn't die doing something heroic, she's going to die doing something heroic, because they're like, now you can't hate her, she saved the world. And it's like, oh my gosh.
That's one.
Let your decisions
That's
lie.
100% where I thought they were going to go with it. I'm like,
I thought
if they're trying to redeem her,
I thought they'd do it in
they're going to give her a noble death. That's what they're going to do.
They're going to do it. I thought they'd do it in Shadow.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
Wow. It's fine.
I mean, that's honestly where my book reading went when Star Wars was, because we caught up eventually.
Yeah, well, when I started working at Kmart in 2001, yeah, because I was in sophomore. So in 2001, I started working at Kmart. My supervisor, she was obsessed with the New Jedi Order. She loved Star Wars. It was insane. And she was talking to me about all this stuff. And I was like, I had no idea that they even made new books. So she's the reason that I started buying the New Jedi Order series. And then I went off to college as I was still reading them. And
you stole my book.
I did.
Mid-read.
I did do that. I was
mad too.
I was a shitty brother.
I said, Mom, you stole my book. And it wasn't like, oh, it's sitting on my desk. I had a bookmark in it.
Yes, I did that. I'm not proud of it.
And then you broke up the series because all of them at that point were mine. I had purchased them and then you started purchasing them because you were caught up.
Yeah.
And so now half the books were mine and half the books were yours. And it was confusing.
It was. Well, here, in my defense, I had caught up to you and I was going away and I had the next book. I was home for like the weekend and I had started reading it, the one that you were reading, and I'm like, I didn't finish it. But if I don't finish it, then I'm just going to have nothing to do for the next like 2 weeks until I come home. I need to be
a normal college kid and go get drunk.
No.
Steal your brother's Star Wars.
Star Wars is more important.
What a loser.
I was like, I'll mail it home to him. Which I didn't do.
Which you didn't do.
I'm like, in my head, I was like, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to mail it home. And then it'll be that. Or maybe I'll come home next weekend too. And I didn't do that either. I apologize. Here, live on air. I apologize for taking your book.
All 10 people that are listening.
I was a selfish ass. I am so sorry.
11, excuse me.
Do you remember which book it was?
Yeah, it was a good one. It was the one with Jason or Anakin and Tahiri. It was, I think, the one where they get trapped on that planet. If it wasn't,
got it right here. I don't know why I'm asking.
I don't know the names of them. There's so many.
I remember Star by Star, and that was
Star by Star is my favorite Star Wars book.
Star by Star.
Star by Star could be like a movie.
Oh, that would have been a great movie. I think the Unifying Force is my favorite. So Star by Star It was one of the Edge of Victories. It was probably Edge of Victory Rebirth, because that's the second one. Because I remember the reason I wanted to take it is because Star by Star was next, and I needed to get Star by Star before you got Star by Star, because that was a long one. Yeah, but yeah, Dark Journey was the first one I bought. I wouldn't have taken Star by Star.
Well, yeah, because it's a long ass book. And
Yeah,
I wasn't.
There was
close to reading.
There was
that one.
no way I was going to be able to get that one done fast. So I'm telling you, it had to have been.
I think that's the longest Star Wars book they ever wrote.
So the New Jedi Order ones was high school for you, college for me.
Was that 3-book series? The Killick series?
Oh God, that one was
a tough one.
That one was not great. I did not really love those.
That was kind of like a prelude to turning him to the dark side.
That one annoyed me only in the sense that they canceled that one book in between the New Jedi Order and that one, because all of a sudden Zeke was back, and they introduced the bugs, and like they had left it off where like Zeke was gone and then he came back, and then there was this girl with him and they were like all killicky, and it was just really stupid. And I'm like, I feel like I'm missing a chapter here. And the answer I found out later was, yes, they had a book, they planned it, they almost finished writing it, and then it got canceled. They were like, nah, we don't need that one. So that annoyed me. And then on top of that, whole Killick thing with Jaina and Zeke, I hated, because I was a Jagged Fell stan, hence Jagged 2319. That's
Team Jagged.
So yeah, Team Jagged hardcore. So I hated that series.
Han had to earn, air quotes, his right to be with Princess Leia.
I guess
she went off and found a hot prince for a minute.
She sure did. But
that was all a ploy.
I mean, realistically, if these books had come out today with internet culture the way that it is, the whole Zeke and Jaina thing from the New Jedi Order, that would have been a ship that people would have been.
I think I would have hated that.
People would have been pissed about Jagged coming in and breaking Zeke and Jaina up. That would have been the tantamount to the Twilight nonsense with the Team Edward, Team Jacob.
It's Jacob James almost.
So yeah, those books were a little rough. The Legacy series was hardcore. They did not hold back. Killed major characters. I would almost say that, to get a little Star Trek-y into our Star Wars podcast, the Legacy series was like when Star Trek came out with Discovery, and they were trying to be edgy and cool, and we curse now, and it's dark, and people are gonna die. And then, like, they had to dial it back so that when Jedi Cast came out, they did the whole, like, people are gonna die of fun. Because then it was like Ben and Luke Skywalker road trip movie, and Ben is now a teenager and he meets a girl and they have to go on a road trip with his dad. It's like a goofy movie in space. But that series was way more fun, and it made Luke way more cool. Like, Luke had been like holding back, and they were afraid, because I was reading an interview with Zahn, who pretty much said they had to do something about Luke.
I think they were worried about the power scaling.
Yeah, Luke's power scaling was getting to a point where, oh no, we're making him too powerful. We need to do something about this. So that's what the whole Hand of Thrawn duology was. It was for Luke to realize that, like, if he kept scaling his power up, he would eventually become the Emperor.
Yeah, but he executed his power in the New Jedi Order. That was one of his greatest book moments.
Agreed. When he finally let loose.
When he finally let loose on the Yuzan Vong, he was just like, hello, friends. You've been fighting my minions.
Oh, by the way, I'm pretty badass.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Well, and I think that was the start of it, where they were like, hey, we've got this guy who's really cool. Like, maybe let's let him do some things. And then in the Legacy series, he was torn because it was family. And then it was until Jedi Outcast that Luke really got to be a main character again, because up until that point, Luke really wasn't. He had, I think, two books in Legacy?
He had the Yoda-esque style character.
And that's really where they leave him off in Crucible. Like, he essentially becomes Yoda. He goes on a journey. Yeah, he's an old dude. I mean, although that's kind of a spring chicken in,
Han was a pretty older fella.
I think Han was I think they said he was like 7 years older than
Star Wars. ages are like when you hit like 80, 90, that's when you're like starting to be like old.
Exactly. I'd say humans could probably kick it to about 120, 130. Jedi maybe 150 with medical technology the way that it worked. So like
you just soak you just soak your old in a Bacta tank.
Yeah, exactly. I would assume that if they had stuck with the expanded universe, you could have had 70-year-old Mark Hamill playing 100-year-old Luke Skywalker, and it would have made perfect sense. Yeah. Like it wouldn't have been a big deal.
All three of them playing an older version of themselves. Just let them be the side characters they always wanted to be.
Exactly.
So Harrison Ford, all he'd have to do is be like, "Yes, I was in Star Wars," and they're like, "How did you enjoy doing your 2 days of shooting?" It was perfect.
It was wonderful.
It was wonderful. I loved it. I flew my plane all weekend.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't crash it this time.
I crashed my plane onto set, and then they got me a new plane, and I crashed myself.
I broke my leg on the Millennium Falcon, but don't worry, it was healed just in time for me to fly away. Let the man live.
All right, so you said that Star by Star was your favorite. When was the last time you read it? Because I honestly, for me,
don't
it's
know if I
been
want to
about
reread
15
it because like everything that I remember is perfect.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I just remember Borsk Phalia being like he's like the Professor Umbridge of Star Wars. Like, and honestly, he's probably, if I went back and reread, he's probably a pretty reasonable guy. He's just he's just doing his job. Like, he wasn't actually trying to like, but as soon as like the planet was at fucking death's door, he's like, I'm going down with the ship.
That was the one where he fit it.
Yeah, because they were terraforming. Coruscant was like the hub for forever.
Oh yeah.
It was how the Rebel Alliance had to retake the galaxy. It's where everything kind of like the central point of everything was Coruscant. Even in the prequels. Without Coruscant, did they have the control of the galaxy? And when the Yuuzhan Vong take Coruscant, they're not only are they taking it, they're terraforming a city planet. A planet that's 95% city, if there's dirt even left on that planet.
Right.
And they're terraforming it while I guess they were invading it simultaneously. It was just like an epic air or space assaults was just happening while like shit's terraforming. They're trying to evacuate all the citizens, like Luke and Mara and Ben as a young baby. Maybe
Ben was just a baby,
he was maybe
and
a toddler at the oldest.
No, he was a baby because the Yuuzhan Vong War was only like over the course of 2 years, and he was born just before the book series started. So he was at the very oldest, like 2.
Yeah, right. So like Star Wars was always relatively safe. They're good reads. The good guys experience a bad guy, and the good guys do good guy stuff and save the day. Like it's as simple as that. Like I mean, how many super weapons is the joke? How many super weapons are they going to have to defeat? Like obviously, guys like Corrin have had great character development.
Yeah,
and like Wedge and his crew of the like they all have good character development, which is why it's good. The stories, if you really broke them down, they're generic,
they're basic
science fiction stories in a ever expanding universe. Which the more you expand on a universe, the more interesting they become. Like Coruscant isn't interesting without maybe the prequels, because like before that it was just a planet with a statue tumbling over.
Well, I would even say even the prequels didn't. That's not what made Coruscant interesting. The extra books where the characters would go into Coruscant, where they would have to go to different parts of it. The Coruscant Nights series is a great example. They don't really leave that planet very often, and you get a grander scale of the scope of that world. You understand that there's no way we can comprehend how big Coruscant is, because they're always going to a new place, and like
it just goes down from levels and levels and levels and levels, and just
the biggest loss of that we ever had was when that 1313 game got canceled.
I was literally just passing it through my mind and watching that guy go down that Coruscant shaft. And
it was so cool.
How is this the opening to your game and you're going to cancel it?
I don't.
But so Coruscant is just like this place that's Star Wars. Like
it's one like, and it's one planet.
And it's one singular planet, and it's got every race and robot and whatever, criminal faction, good faction.
It's a planet where you can hide an entire Super Star Destroyer in it.
Yeah.
And no one would even notice.
Basically. And so the fact that they were so willing to not only destroy it, but give it to the enemy and not just destroy it, terraform it in such a way where it's like it's not even going to be the same place anymore if they ever get it back. Would it even be worth getting back? Like,
Yeah.
Is it even worth getting back at this point? Or maybe it'll be even better because like it can actually breathe some air.
Right? Oh, hey, it turns out the bad guys
like-
did us a solid.
Yeah, right. Like they kind of helped it out. And then
Luke looks over at the New Republic Council. Holy shit, are we the bad guys?
yeah. And so guys like Borsfalia, who you're like, oh, this guy's a dick, but he does some heroic shit at the end, and he's like,
Yep.
oh, this guy likes he's not against the New Republic, he's not against anybody. He's just a guy trying to like maybe do what he thinks is right. But at the end, he's a good dude trying to save his people.
He's a Bothan. And I think the Bothans have been criminally underused in not only the prequels, but also new Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, Clone Wars. You never see Bothans anywhere. They literally had like one of the biggest lines that people quote in the Return of the Jedi, and the expanded universe post
died to get us this.
Oh, I'll just cut that in. I do drops.
You'll get nothing and like it.
The expanding universe post Return of the Jedi, Bothaway and the Bothan people were a huge part, from Borsfelia's introduction to the X-Wing series that dealt with them, to the maybe it was the duology. The Empire's plan is to like cripple the Bothans with that whole Commons document. And so you learn so much about their people, their politics. They always kind of gave me Ferengi vibes from Star Trek. Like if the Ferengi and the Romulan were the same species, they're a little skeezy and they're definitely trying to get the better deal, but also they're very politically minded and driven. Yeah. And so like I really love the Bothans. Why we never saw them again after this is just beyond me. They were a fun race to always tackle with, and because they made good bad guys. They made good bad guys, but bad guys that weren't bad. Like they were just oppositional to the good guys.
He's not a bad guy. He's just a bad guy.
Yeah. Like Borsfalia, he was introduced to be a foil to the good guys because we are on Luke's side. And when he says he doesn't want to do Luke's thing,
yeah, you're supposed to
disagree with him. And they're doing something similar in Ahsoka. There's a guy that I literally have been calling him Discount Borsfalia because it's just some senator who is just disagreeing with them for disagreement's sake. The only difference is you don't get any of that backstory. He's just a guy that shows up and is a complete pain in everyone's asshole.
Always generic, disagreeable guy who either is going to betray at the end or is a nothing character.
Exactly. And so I really like the fact that they build out that world. And that's why I like the books in general. They build out the world. They make Star Wars a place.
I could go all day on what Disney did to the Star Wars, like just the universe as a whole and like their science fiction of it all. Every planet they go to is like an outpost station. Well, as if the planet Earth isn't a reference point for what a populated planet could look like.
Well, see, what they do is they took what George did and they never expanded upon it. So, like, when you go to any planet, it's always one climate. Like, it's a planet full of desert.
Yeah, but that's kind of like what the galaxy really is, though. But if you read the books, that's just not true.
Yeah, I know.
The Ithorians come from Ithor or whatever,
yeah.
And, like, they have a society. Even the prequels did it with the ocean planet. It was clearly that wasn't the only one there was probably other people that lived there. Dagobah, but slightly less Dagobah. then there was the Tatooine, but not Tatooine.
It's Jakku.
And then there was red dust version of Hoth.
Yeah.
And
it was Desert Hoth.
Like every planet, but even when you go to like the Mandalorian, he goes to secondary ice planet, but it's ice crystal. And then you go to like the planet with Gina Carano's character. It's just like
it's a big
farmland character. Obi-Wan and Princess Leia go to like the same place, but slightly different and more vast. There's like slightly rocky
like,
outposts.
yeah.
It's just like, this isn't a universe. This looks like there's 28 people that live in this place. And there's just like, it makes no sense. Just the universe itself just feels bland. It feels boring. Like, I'm not a Star Trek guy, but I watched season 3 of whatever that show is.
You're killing me right now, Smalls.
I watched
Picard?
Picard. I watched season 3. Like that one planet where they found Worf.
A Metallus Prime.
Yeah, that planet had more personality in a little clip like that than any Star Wars planet has had in any way, shape, or form.
Well,
and they've been to like 2 or 3 different ones that were still more interesting.
I will give credit where it's due. The problem there is that they were just shooting on that new volume thing. They became so volume obsessed, where it's just like that domed room with screens. And so they make a few set pieces and they put it in there and they cram a couple people in there. And then after a while, it just feels small.
Well, you watched
and
a lot more Picard than I did.
No, I'm talking about Star Wars.
Oh.
You just can tell that this room that they keep using to film everything is just so small that they can't fit people in it. They can't make it look lived in. They can't make it look big. It's a behind the scenes thing. They're trying to save money and they need to get away from it. Hollywood in general has this problem. They need to get back to the days where they would go to a place and film on location, because you can tell now. The movies that film on location, like the movie The Creator that just came out, the movie is absolutely gorgeous. They went to like Vietnam and they filmed in actual locations, and then they used the computer to digitally add like spaceships and robots, but they didn't do it all on a green screen. Like, people criticize Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith for being like 100% on a blue screen or a green screen, and how everything just looks fake and CG and digital. And that was in 2005. It's 2023 and they're still doing it. And now it's even more widespread. Everyone is doing it. Like 90% of all movies have at least an almost all digital setting at some point in the movie.
I want to say there was a joke going, or it wasn't even a joke. It was Rings of Power. You could see the same extra 3 times in a scene.
Listen, man, they spent $2 billion on that show. They needed to cut every corner they could to make it work. I actually liked Rings of Power. I did not have a problem with it.
I bailed because it was boring. I watched 2 episodes and I'm like, there's no hook.
It did drag a bit. I just loved the vibe of the show. Like, I just loved living in that world. It felt so reminiscent of the world Peter Jackson created for the movies. And so just to hang out felt real good. I was like, I really love it. The story itself was a little lacking. It had so many pacing issues. I totally get why people didn't like it. But I just really vibed hard with just the way it looked, the way it felt. I just was like, I remember being in high school and seeing the movies for the first time in theaters, and they were so great. I love it. So it was just...
I didn't get any of that. I mean, if I got a little bit of that, I would have watched episode 3.
Well, you know what is funny? Episode 3 wouldn't have saved it. But the last half was...
It gets a lot better,
it picked up. Well, it's because it's
Please read my blog.
It's telling you. It's getting better. I really did, from start to finish, I really did appreciate what they were doing, because they could have rushed into it to give us that big bang right at the front. And one could argue it was a bold move not doing that. It just depends on where they go with the second season, because the way that they left off the first season, I'm very excited to see what happens next. And I'm so curious as to like who the fucking wizard is, even though it's like, it's Gandalf. I'm sure it's Gandalf, but like, it could be Saruman. So there's still that like question of whether or not it's him. But I don't know. I felt like it teased me enough, and I maybe I was just in the right mood those weeks it came out.
It just didn't make sense to have hobbits.
They were kind of like hobbits. They weren't really
like,
hobbits.
That's
they
just
were
like they're trying to recapture something.
They were. Sure. Do a drink every time they say the main hobbit girl's name, Nori or Dory or whatever her name was. Do a drink every time. No, but don't really, because you'll die. Like, they are constantly yelling her name. Yeah. They covered all the bases. They had an elf story, a human story, a Hobbit story and a dwarf story.
I don't think the hobbits were needed.
They kind of were, because if it is Gandalf, then it makes sense as to why Gandalf has an affinity for them. If it's not Gandalf, it doesn't make as much sense, but...
I don't know. I don't think you need that. Some things are better left just not told.
I mean, sure, but they are telling it. So it's not terrible. It's not bad. They're charming characters.
It's kind of like trying to make a perfect finale for your TV show.
Which is very hard to do.
They're trying to make a perfect prequel for Gandalf.
Which is so hard to do.
Which is why they shouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
I mean...
Mordor blows up. That's easy.
That part. Dude,
Sauron's a dickhead.
I don't want to
deceive.
I don't want to 100% spoil it for you, because the realization of what happens at the end of the first season.
I know the mountain blows up or whatever.
They make Mordor.
Yeah, I understand. I know. I'm not like ignorant to what the show is.
But getting there,
it's not really a spoiler, because we all know Sauron was the pretty boy she found.
I know, but here's the thing: the journey that it took us on to get there really hooked me in. Like, you have no idea how many times from episode 1 to episode 4 I had pulled up maps of Middle-earth, and I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, so where are they? This is where Mordor should be, and this is where they say they are, and I'm, like, piecing it together as I'm watching the show, and it really worked for me. I think part of why I liked it so much is because I was watching the Game of Thrones prequel at the same time, and I hated it. I absolutely could not stand it. It drove me up the wall. I'm like, at least I have one good fantasy thing to go back to. So
I didn't. There was something that bugged me about it, but I liked it. Like a 6 or a 7.
You know, it's
like
funny.
for something that ended so poorly and basically soured my Game of Thrones enjoyment. I was like, okay, I hated it a little less.
I didn't want to watch the new show.
Yeah, I was hesitant.
People were giving it good reviews, and people were really liking it. And I'm like, all right, fine. So 3 episodes in, I decided to start it, and I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And I was like, I don't love this, but I'll give it to its season run.
I was enjoying Matt Smith.
Yeah, he was fun.
I was enjoying his character.
I wish that the show they made was the show that he thought he was in, because he was clearly having a better time.
He was overacting compared to them.
He was having a much better time than everyone else.
He was
carrying the show.
He was method acting while the rest of the cast was maybe... Although the king wasn't bad.
Oh, no, he was great, too. Paddy Considine was not even nominated for an Emmy, which that's disappointing. I think if anybody deserved it in that show, it was him.
I didn't like, it was like episode 3 or episode 4 is when they recasted the girls, and I felt like they needed to recast them a second time. I was like, you could age them up a little better.
The time jumps drove me mad.
The time jumps were uncomfortable.
Well, the problem with the time jumps is that it's not good storytelling. You can't literally lead us up to a big climactic moment at the end of that wedding,
like
and then the next episode you're like, all right, let's go. What happens? And it's like 10 years later, and you're
like you were saying, I was pulling up the map of Middle-earth. I was pulling up the family tree of the Targaryens, and I'm like, where the heck are we now? Who's this kid? Where's that kid? Who's related to Daenerys?
Well, here's the funny thing. I did something similar because I have that book. I got it. Someone gave it to me for like Christmas one year. Probably Julie. But I pulled out that book and I was about to start reading it when I got to the episode where I was like, this noise, I don't even care anymore. I put the book away.
Okay, you can cut this out if you need to. But the one thing I'm just like, okay, I get it. It's a TV show. But I'm like, you really can't tell those aren't your kids?
I know.
He's got white hair and different color skin. His whole family's got the white hair.
I said that too.
I'm like, and the guy who guards her is a white man with beautiful brown hair. Beautiful brown hair. And those kids have Aragorn level beautiful brown hair. I was like, and they're just like, we don't have the right technology to prove it.
We can't prove it, so I guess it didn't happen.
I'm like, okay. I was like, I get it. It's a show. They made some choices that were probably questionable as far as like dialogue.
It was the fact that they didn't address it.
No one brought it up.
The fact that the story focused so much on them
whose
paying
heritage
to the
is-
lineage. They're so laser focused.
No one wanted to address the elephant in the room.
Was that it?
And like the grandma's like, I love these kids, and I'm like, you can tell they're not yours, yeah.
Oh my god, that's so funny because you're just sitting there and you're watching it and you're just like,
Really? Nothing's
Maybe-
giving it away?
like maybe they're not. Like, I don't know.
It was like, and that guy is definitely not their father.
Yeah, Maury Povich is like, I didn't even need the lie detector test for this one. Oh, Game of Thrones. Well, okay, so this episode is more than just Star Wars chat, which is fine.
Oh, star by star.
Well, I don't even care anymore. Fuck it. What else are you watching? Are you watching? Have you seen Twisted Metal yet? Oh, I'm gonna tell you right now. If you haven't seen Twisted Metal, oddly one of the best shows of the year. I don't know if this is because I went in with low expectations. Although Mike, my podcast partner on this very show, has told me to my face that it's one of his favorite shows of the year. And even still, so like those expectations were raised, and yet I watched it. I'm on like episode 6. It's so good. It's so funny. Anthony Mackie kicks ass in it. He's hilarious. He's got real like 90s Will Smith energy, and the show is goofy as hell. It's like not at all taking itself seriously. And you could tell everyone is enjoying it. It knows exactly what show it is. If you watch one show this year, I'll probably watch Mrs. Maisel's finale. But if you watch another show this year if you watch one show on Peacock this year, definitely watch Twisted Metal.
Quite bad at that game.
We didn't have it. We only ever played it at.
Brian beat me, and he was always.
Oh, you played at Brian's house?
He was always Sweet Tooth.
I only ever played it when we went to Aunt Nancy's and we played with Eddie and DJ.
Yeah, it was terrible.
So, yeah, I sucked. And granted, I was never great at multiplayer games to begin with. I'm still not.
Anything with driving, I'm not a fan of.
I like Mario Kart, and even that, it took me an entire year at college of playing Mario Kart Double Dash every day. All 16 races every day for an entire year before I finally got good at a racing game. And then they changed all the mechanics in the next one. I was like, God damn it. So it took me a minute to get used to that again. But yeah, Twisted Metal, I hear they're remaking it for next-gen consoles.
You make a smart choice based on the fact that there's a TV show.
I was talking to the bus stop dads today. They were saying that someone had said that it should be out by the time that season 2 of Twisted Metal comes out. So like they'll kind of like cross-promote, which would be fun. Will Arnett does the voice of Sweet Tooth, and he's so funny. Sweet Tooth is nuts. Like, he's an insane person. And it's so weird how they've taken this video game about cars that drive around and shoot rockets at each other, and they've turned it into like this world, this vast world of, it's like Mad Max meets Trolls, like the kids animated Trolls movie. It's like colorful and wild, and like Granny, who's a character in the game, they get kidnapped by Granny, who has like a convoy of semi-trucks that like can connect up, and they like kidnap them, and it turns out Granny's super chill, and like everybody in the convoy are like super cool, and so like they turn the expectation of, oh no, they're being kidnapped, these people are bad, they're gonna kill them, and it's like, no, they're just like a bunch of hippies. It's fantastic. Thomas Hayden Church is like a cop who's trying to like restore law and order, and so like he's like insane. Sweet Tooth just like lives in Las Vegas by himself, and like he puts on shows for people, and then he kills them when they don't give him an honest review. It's very Walking Dead-esque, but like if Walking Dead was good and fun, watch it.
Not Walking Dead.
Fair enough. It's kind of Walking Dead the way that Walking Dead like makes you feel like you don't feel safe when they're out on the road, that sort of thing. I don't know. It's hard to explain without actually watching it. So, any other dire Star Wars thoughts that you've got that you want to get out before we wrap things up?
No. I mean, I could talk about Star Wars for another 3-4 hours with like 4 or 5 offshoots.
Yeah, we have a problem with squirrels on this show, so. Well, then I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you for coming on the show. And this is your inaugural first ever being on a podcast, I assume?
Yes.
Our next episode will be Star Wars Ahsoka Part 4 Fallen Jedi. For reals this time, I promise. Until next time, please like, subscribe. Try not to get too squirreled when talking about Star Wars. And share this podcast with someone who might enjoy it. Rate us 5 stars on your listening app of choice. You can find us all over social media. I am on Blue Sky, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Jagged2319. Mike, do you want anybody to follow you anywhere on social medias?
U.S. Army.
All right. You can follow Mike by going to your local recruitment center and asking to sign up today.
Send more privates.
Until next time, thank you again to my brother, Mike Ferro. I'm Nick Ferro. Thank you for tuning in to Geeks Speak Louder Than Nerds. Bye, everybody.
Fun to just make stuff up.
I know, right? You know, we also have the internet. So.
No, he just makes stuff up, you rip it, and then have someone yell at you in the comment section. That's how
what was
it
that?
goes.
Brothers got a hug.
My favorite part of that was after Force Awakens came out, they released one of those Atlas books where these are all the people and these are all the places. And they had a map of the galaxy. And they had where Starkiller Base was, and they had where the planets they destroyed were, but then they had the planet that they all were on, that they watched the lasers from the sky. The planets are not in between the two that got destroyed. So it's like, guys.
Because they watched it like, whoa.
Yeah, but that planet wasn't even, they released the map, and it doesn't work.
Brothers got a hug.
So I'm probably going to have to re-record the intro, because we did not talk about everything that I thought we would, and we definitely had more fun.
Brothers got a hug.
It's super fun. It's like someone set the Jacob shotgun to whore and pointed it at Mad Max.
Brothers got a hug.
You see, Homer, if you want to gain weight, all you need to do is hold the food up to a piece of paper, and if the paper turns clear, that's your window of opportunity.
Brothers got a hug.
Bye, everybody.